Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkhapat bhavet, loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti. The subject today, they reminded me again what the subject is, but then again Dr. Karan Singh said, because I tend to not going senile, but it's like that. Anyway, so the subject is Vedanta and for the modern world. Vedanta for the modern world. Okay, so there are two sections here, Vedanta and modern world. So we have to examine both these concepts and see if they really fit into the picture. Because when you say Vedanta, people usually think of ancient times. I think it is timeless. And when you say modern world, we think it has nothing to do with Vedanta and such things as people put it. I'm saying that it is time now. Actually, it started 100 years ago, maybe roughly, by Swami Vivekananda, when he introduced Vedanta as a practical philosophy rather than just a speculative thing. He said, the days of Vedanta sitting inside the caves is past. It should come to the normal, working, ordinary human being. So if this is what it is, I think this, not only this nation, because you can't say Vedanta applies only to this nation. Vedanta is a universal concept because it talks about universality of the supreme reality. Not just for one section. Of course, it was written in Sanskrit. Now, it was written in Sanskrit because that was the language of those days. Unfortunately, today, Sanskrit has become a dead language. So Sanskrit, of course, it's changing. Many people are now beginning to understand, mainly, I think, because in the West, there is a lot of interest in Sanskrit. In Berlin, there are 2 chairs for Sanskrit. What about our universities? Anyway, so therefore it happened to be in Sanskrit. So when you say Sanskrit, don't consider it to be a denominational thing. It's a great language, a universal language. You can even have computer terms in Sanskrit. Mathematics. It's not just religion. Drama, Kalidasa. And the Adi Kavi, Valmiki wrote the Ramayana. He is considered to be the Adi Kavi. Now this is drama, story, and then music from the Samaveda and so on. We won't go into that elaborately because. So anyway, the essence of Vedanta. I want to tell you a little story from the Chandogya Upanishad. One of the one of the sons of a great rishi is sent by the rishi to study with another rishi. There was no succession through birth. He was sent to study with somebody else. And when he came back, his father asked him, "Have you found truth?" So the rishi said, the young man said, "I think I have found it." And the father said, "If you think you have found it, you have not found it, because there is an uncertainty out there. Because those who touch it, there is no uncertainty, they have found it." Then he says, "Let me explain to you. You see the banyan tree out there? Yes? There's a seed fallen, go pick up the seed." So the son picks up the seed. He says, "Peel the outer rind." He peels it. He asks him, "What do you see?" He says, "I see a kernel inside." He said, "Peel it." "Now what do you see?" He said, "I see little seeds inside." He says, "Take one of the seeds and peel it." "Now what do you see?" He says, "I see nothing." And the father says to the son, it is out of that nothing that this banyan tree has come. From that little thing which we think is nothing, which Buddha called Shunya and Shankara called Purna. It is from this that this whole banyan tree has come. Now this is the way the Upanishad is taught. I would request people who have telephones to switch off the Nada Brahma right now. So this is the Upanishad. So what is so important in the Upanishad is dialogue. Dialogue. So it's not as if somebody says, this is what it is. You accept it. Somebody says, let's discuss about it. Therefore, in the forest academies, in the olden days, the rishis had students who sat together and learned from them. And it was called Rahasya. I think partly because there were no loudspeakers and microphones, but also because there were intimate things discussed closely between the teacher and the taught. It was not to be broadcast that way. So it was called Rahasya. Not because somebody wanted to keep it as a secret, but these were things which when discussed, sometimes the truth came out not through the words but between the words. So this is the Upanishad. So it will be a good idea to define, to find out what the word means before we go further. Upanishad is Upa, Ni and Shat. Upa means Upa means to move close, not close, near, N-E-A-R, Upa. What is Upavasa? To journey close to the divinity. Not just fasting, that's not Upavasa, yeah, it is done so that the mind can be controlled. Upavasa actually means to move towards the Supreme. So Upa means near, close. Close to what? One, close to the teacher. When you say close to the teacher, it doesn't mean that you should sit on the teacher's lap. What it means is that you should be intimate with the teacher so that you can understand what is being said. 2. The other meaning of Upa is the supreme reality described by Vedanta, by the Upanishads. Your mind can only move as close as possible to it. You cannot touch it. You can go as close as possible. Because when you go there, you are not there anymore. Sri Ramakrishna in a simple way described it as like the salt doll going to check the depths of the ocean. There is no salt doll. So the only expression we can use is to go close. Once you are close, it's like something going near the sun, it's burnt off. There's nothing left except that. And so these are some of the meanings of Upa. Upa also means that one is close to divinity, which means one is moving oneself away from that which is negative and going towards that which is positive. This is also another meaning of Upa. Then you have the word Shat. Shat, in the normal sense of the term, means sit down. Sit. Shat. Which means, now you're sitting here, when somebody gets up, I know that you're going to go out, you're not interested. So, Shat is to sit. It's not only physically sit, but also that the mind sits down. You can sit here physically, but your mind might be moving outside. People might even be thinking if the parked cars would be around when they go back. We live in Kali Yuga. So, if the mind can be made to sit down, and not wander. This is one meaning of the word Shat. Adi Shankara, who wrote so many commentaries on the Upanishads, on the Brahma Sutras, on the Bhagavad Gita, and also one of those beautiful texts like Tridriksha Viveka and Viveka Chudamani and so on. He, being a great Sanskrit scholar, found out that Shat also means shake up. Shake up from what? The primary meaning would be to shake oneself up from the sleep of ignorance. Wake up. It could also mean to shake up all our theories about the world, about oneself and about happiness. Because the thing that we are examining here, the Supreme Reality, may be completely opposite the way we normally think. There's a beautiful chapter, 15th chapter in the Gita, which is called the Purushottama Yoga. It starts with Urdhvamulam Matasyakam Ashvattam. There is an Ashwatha tree which is upside down. Normally, trees' roots are down and the branches are above. Here we are talking about a tree whose roots are up above and branches below, which means to reverse our mode of thinking. From the yogic point of view, it's perfect description because the root is here. Even physically, it is the brain and the glands here that control the whole system. So here is the root and these are the branches. Now from the philosophical point of view, it means look at things in a completely different order, not as we think. Which means what? That we are seeking something which is beyond the understanding of our five sense organs. Good news is that everybody can find it if they want. So, this is the Upanishad, the study of coming close to the Supreme Reality, sitting close to the teacher and having a dialogue and trying to discover how to look at it, not in the normal way, but in a different way. If something is out there and I am here, then I have to move towards it in a linear fashion. What if the thing that we are seeking is everywhere? How do I move towards it? It's a paradox. Suppose something is there and I'm here and I'm going towards it. What if it's here everywhere? How do I move to it? When all movement stops, says the Upanishad, then you have found it. Not physical movement, of course. The movement of the mind. Because you're looking at something as the Ishavasya Upanishad says, Ishavashyamidam sarvam etkinja jagatyam jagat. Which means that Supreme Reality pervades everything here, idam, not there. So Upanishads and Vedanta are not a philosophy of something happening after death or somewhere else, but right now and here. Otherwise the word idam would not be used. So Isha Vashyam idam sarvam, that Supreme Reality pervades everything here. So why don't we see it? Because we are always looking for it there. So these are some of the concepts of the Upanishad. Then of course there is a small word that connects Upa and Shat, which is Ni, Upanishad. Ni indicates, for instance, the Hindi word Niche is from Ni, the root. Indicates the attitude of the student that receives the teaching. The moment you say, I know, it's not possible to receive. So the start should be, I don't know. It's so difficult to say I don't know. Very difficult. We always like to think we know. It's so difficult to say. So when you start with an attitude of I don't know, let me move, let me understand, then the vessel that receives is empty. It's not full. You can't put anything into a vessel that is already full. You know the famous story of the Zen master, I keep repeating it. So Some of our old friends might think it's a repetition, but it's so to the point that somebody goes to a professor goes to a Zen master and says, I want to learn Zen. Can you give me Satori? Satori is like nirvana or moksha in the Japanese system. Now, the Zen master goes and prepares a cup of tea in a kettle and brings it and starts pouring it into a cup. He pours and he pours and he pours. The professor is watching. Nothing against professors, please. And then the cup fills up. He still keeps pouring, so the tea comes out of the cup and flows down the tablecloth. After 2 minutes, the professor says, "Sir, the cup is overflowing." So the master stops and said, "Your cup is overflowing. How can I give you Zen? There is no space." So this is why the Upanishad also says that knowledge can lead you, sometimes ordinary knowledge can act as a barrier to the understanding of the truth. The Ishavasya Upanishad itself has a beautiful sentence where it says, Andamantava, which means those who, they go into darkness, who pravishanti vidyayam upasate, avidyayam upasate, those who worship ignorance. When you say worship, it means those who understand ordinary knowledge, which we'll come to later, what ordinary, not extraordinary and so on. Those who worship knowledge enter into ignorance enter into darkness. Now this is very clear. We will all say, we agree. Those who worship ignorance enter into darkness because we are worshipping knowledge, not ignorance. The next sentence of the Upanishad is like a bolt from the blue. It says, and those who worship knowledge enter into greater darkness. Now, is the Rishi trying to make fun of us or what's happening? Is it a play on words? Now there are many reasons why this is said. One is, mostly when we have too much of so-called knowledge, theoretical knowledge, along with it comes pride and the feeling that I know. The moment I say I know, the I becomes very strong. When the I becomes very strong, it's not possible to understand that which is not the I, but which is the true I of the I. The other reason being knowledge. I'm avoiding using too much Sanskrit because let's keep it simple. When we say knowledge, what is it that we mean when we say knowledge? I have a knowledge of the microphone. That means before that I did not have the knowledge of the microphone. Then I decided to know about it and I found out this is the meaning of a microphone. Now I have a knowledge of the microphone, which means what? I have understood a concept and it has gone into my memory and it has been stored in some cubby hole in my memory system, and whenever I want, I can pull it out and see it and say, I know about this. So you look at all knowledge, including Vedantic knowledge, it's actually stored in the memory. Now you know that memory is a thing of the past, it cannot be something in the present. Have you heard of a present memory? Now this Upanishad says the supreme reality, which is the Brahman, is here and now, not stored somewhere in the memory. So it's not a concept which you can remember and draw out when you want. If you think that is the way to understand the Brahman, the Rishi says, sorry, Brahman is here and now, like the flowing river. It's not something that is finished and stored in the memory and then understood. But all our knowledge is like that. We need it, of course, in many ways. But when it comes to this, it's best to understand that which is immediately now is neither in the past nor in the future, but now. This is another teaching of the Upanishad. Now, regarding those who have theoretical knowledge and who think that they have understood the reality. Dr. Sahab's favorite Upanishad, Mundaka, says, Andeinaiva niyamana yatandaha. It's like the blind leading the blind. It's not from Shakespeare, it's much older. So, the attempt in Vedanta is to immediately, intimately, in the present, understand the reality. Now, this reality which we are trying to find, fortunately for us, is not far away. It's in us. If it's all pervading, it is also in us. And the human being has the special capacity, which the animal does not have, to be conscious and aware of it. That is the difference. Otherwise, some animals are more intelligent than us in many ways. I've seen dogs, good dogs, and bad human beings. It's not that. It's simply that human beings have a special quality, which is to be aware of that consciousness which is all pervading and which also resides in everybody's heart as the Antaryami. That is supreme reality. Now, the Upanishads are not the only scriptures that can be considered as teaching Vedanta. The Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras also. We won't touch the Brahma Sutras because they are very abstract. I think they're meant for sannyasins who sit quietly and try to understand. What do you think of a scripture that starts with Atato Brahma Jijnasa? Here begins the study of the Brahman. First we have to study ourselves. Now for this, the next textbook which simplifies the Upanishad and puts it into a practical application, that's how it's linked to modern life, is the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is really an Upanishad. Dhyana sloka of the Bhagavad Gita, Vyasa says, Sarvo Upanishato Gavo Dugdha Gopalanandana Partho Vatsaha Sudhir Bhukta Dugdham Gitamritam Mat, which means this Gita, suppose you consider all the Upanishads to be cows. Because remember now there's a lot of things about cows going on. So, Sarvo Upanishato, if all the Upanishads are the cows, and Dugdha Gopalanandana, and if Krishna is the one who is milking the cow, beautifully means imagery. Partho Vatsaha, if Arjuna, Partha, is the calf, when the calf hits the udder of the cow, it is hit and milk flows. So Arjuna in between keeps asking questions. Krishna says to Arjuna, so the mind should be like a flame without the wind blowing. And Arjuna says, 1 minute, just a minute, how can this be possible? I can control the wind, but I can't control my mind, and then it proceeds. So it's a dialogue. So the Upanishad, in its simplified form, as an essence, Gita Amritam, the nectar of the Upanishad, is put into the Gita by Vyasa in 18 chapters. It's like if people here who play golf, it's like the 18 holes, 18 chapters. And the Upanishad itself, at end of every chapter, says, Idi Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads. And what is the Upanishad? Brahma Vidyayam. And also practical method of finding it, Yoga Shastri, Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvad, dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Now you must remember that the Bhagavad Gita starts with the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Now the meaning of the word Vishada, like in Sanskrit, many words, it has many meanings. One is, some people say that it means Arjuna, the yoga of Arjuna's sorrow. Some say it's a yoga of Arjuna's indecisiveness. The yoga of Arjuna's uncertainty. I don't know where to go from here. But what you must remember, that here is a text which is supposed to have been preached in a battlefield, not in a cave. This is why I think the Gita is very relevant to our day-to-day life. It's preached in the midst of action, not in inaction, sitting somewhere, which may be necessary sometimes, I agree. Like sometimes when you go deep into the understanding of the Upanishads and deep into the practice by which you can touch the essence, you might have to have periods of solitude, understood. It's like this silk moth, the silkworm that builds a little cocoon and sits inside in the dark. And then when it breaks, what happens? Butterfly with beautiful wings. But then you can't sit inside, you have to fly, you fly out. Everybody sees the colors. Anyway, so while that is true, the Gita is preached in the field of action. Kshetra, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetra. Now Kshetra itself means a field, F-I-E-L-D, field. So it's preached as a textbook of how to live in a field. This is a field now. There are many such fields. And the whole world is samasta. The whole samasta loka is a field, big field. And how living in this, in our day-to-day lives, how do we manage to touch the essence of Vedanta and bring it into our daily existence? This is the Gita. And that Arjuna is in Vishara, in sorrow or indecisiveness. Actually, we are all Arjunas in some form. Many times we are indecisive, we don't know what to do. Many times we are in sorrow, but then we get frightened of sorrow and run away to entertainment. Can we stay with the sorrow and understand it and solve it? You know what happens when sorrow comes? Either we sweep it under the rug, watch TV, or paralyze the central nervous system with the spirit that comes in the bottle. Finished. Can we move forward? Can we remain alert and watch sorrow in action, as in the Gita? Watch sorrow in action so that you know how to deal with it. Then you can deal with it and then find out the source of happiness. This is the essence, the message of the Upanishad. So in the Gita, it goes on from Arjuna's sorrow and indecision into Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, many chapters, one by one, one by one. One chapter which I really appreciate and love, different people may have different chapters. You would think it is some intellectual chapter like Purushottama Yoga and so on. No. There is one chapter, the 12th chapter, and it's called Bhakti Yoga. So, Bhakti Vedanta. I'm not talking about a human being's name, but Bhakti Vedanta. So, in the 12th chapter, there's a beautiful discussion. One of the few chapters which starts with Arjuna Uvacha. Usually starts Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Here Arjuna Uvacha, the few chapters. Arjuna asks a very important question to Krishna. He says, some say that the supreme reality is kind of formless and intangible and so on. And some say that it's like something which can be worshipped, like you standing before me. Among these two, who do you consider to be the greatest of yogis? Because you are the authority. If you say, I will accept it. Who among them is the greatest of yogis? I would substitute the word yogis with greatest of leaders in society. Who among them is the greatest of devotees? Here devotee and yogi are put together as one. I add one more and say, who are the leaders among them? Who are the greatest? And it's unfortunate that today politics has moved away from all this. If politics has an essence of the Upanishad behind it, you would have different kind of politicians who would see the supreme reality in every heart and work towards the good of the nation, good of the world, instead of only for oneself. So anyway, that's a different subject. We won't go into it. So, what did I say?
Who is the greatest?
Who is the greatest of yogis? So it's beautiful. Krishna, as usual, instead of dealing directly with the question, the character of Krishna is very, very interesting. There's one chapter where Krishna is leaving after the battle to go to Dwarka. So he goes and says goodbye to everybody. And people who are his age, he hugs. And then he goes to the elders and touches their feet. And he comes to the matriarch of the family, Kunti. He goes to Kunti Devi and touches her feet and says, I'm going to Dwarka. Now, if you need anything, please tell me. This is the right time because I'm going away. It's a beautiful dialogue. It describes the character of Krishna. Kunti says, stop this drama now. I know you. You are the one who started the battle. And you are the one who joined our side and made us win the battle. And now you're saying, I'm going to Dwarka, you go nowhere, I know you quite well. You're right here. So he says, but do you need any blessings? Yeah, she says, I need one blessing, can you give it to me? Yeah. She says, bring all the sorrows of the world on my head. Do you think this is easy to do? Would there be a leader who says, let all the sorrows of the world come on my head, can I do good to the welfare of humanity? This is possible. It's so difficult. So Krishna himself is a little stunned. He says, why do you say that? He says, because it's only in sorrow that human beings call for God, usually. Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi. So, when sorrows come, I call you. And I am sure that whenever I call, you'll appear. And I'll see your blessed face. What more do I want? Great happiness for me. So anyway, so to this question, Krishna says, well, those who worship the Supreme Being as the abstract and definable and so on, they are great yogis, of course. There are those who worship the Supreme Being as the manifestation that is there. They are also great yogis. But it doesn't matter which way you worship, that's not important. What is important is the character of the person who's worshipped. How is the mind of the person? Not the mode of worship, but the mind of the person. And he gives 3 important pointers. Before that, we need to look at this. Why is it that Vyasa has to go up to the 12th chapter to talk about Bhakti Yoga? Why not in the beginning? Because till the 9th chapter, it's quite clear. Arjuna asks questions, Krishna answers, it goes on. He considers him as his close friend and his relative and his charioteer and so on, driver. And then suddenly in the 10th chapter, Krishna changes his tone and says, among the mountains I am the Meru, among the rishis I am Kapila, among the immovables I am the Himalayas, among the Vedas I am the Samaveda, not Rigveda, Samaveda and so on. So Arjuna is jolted. Till now we were good friends sitting in the, how can this man be Meru? Oh, So it is the first time that Krishna reveals to Arjuna the infinite capacity which is hidden in all human beings. And he presents himself as an absolute manifestation of that. And says, I am not what you think I am. It's something more. So Arjuna's so-called strict logical mind, which was putting A plus B and so on, is shattered. He just cannot understand what is going on. And then comes the 11th chapter, which is Vishwarupa Darshana. Suddenly he says, this man who was sitting and driving the chariot becomes some kind of a huge thing, many heads and many arms. He's so stunned that he can only say, you are the Tavam Adideva Purusha Purana. There's nothing more he can say. So then he says, he begins to understand that this little finite logic of my brain cannot understand the Supreme. Then comes Bhakti Yoga, where Krishna says to Arjuna, develop certain qualities in your mind so that you learn how to touch that which is beyond your little brain. And what are the qualities in the Gita? 1. Samniyam Indraya Gramam, one who has control over his senses. How nice it would be if we had people ruling us who had control over their senses. When you say senses, it includes anger. It includes all that is connected to the senses. Not that you shouldn't use your senses, but have some amount of control. Don't allow the senses to run away with you. Let the mind dictate where they go. Not the other way around. Usually it's the other way around. So that's the first step. Second quality, Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. Remaining tranquil and equanimous in the midst of all circumstances. Not easy. Normally, you know how our life is. If something nice happens, we are up flying in the air, cloud 9. When it's not, then we are down. So this constant up and down is our life. Krishna says, can you stay equanimous? Because really speaking, in the heart, in the core of your being, is a spark of the divine which needs nothing. By itself it is happiness. It is that which is the essence of being. Knowing this, or at least intellectually trying to understand this in some, before you go there, can you keep your mind? Because it's described in the Gita as Sitoshna Sukha Dukkheshu. In Sukha or Dukkha, in heat or cold, can you remain sane? Also it says, Tulya Ninda Stutir Mauni. For a Mauni, for a Rishi, for a Yogi, Ninda and Stuti are the same. He doesn't get elated with Stuti, which is praise, and he doesn't become depressed when there is Ninda. Which means what? What is Ninda? How? Criticism. Not only criticism, also criticism, but Ninda. So I always ask people, this language is such a thing that when people say something about us, we get completely affected by it. Suppose I don't know English and you call me a fool, what does it matter? It's the language that builds it up. And then I have this impression, oh, he called me a fool, I'm not a fool. Suppose I knew Hindi, I might think you're calling me a fool, flower, I'm very happy. It's the same word. So it's the mind, how the mind reacts to it. So can we keep our mind, is it possible to keep the mind equanimous, tranquil in the midst of circumstances? And the yoga is the way of training the mind to do that. And the last is so important, which is Sarva Bhuta Hite Rada. One who has the welfare of all living beings in his heart. Says Krishna is the greatest of yogis. So if you see somebody who is always creating trouble for others, he cannot be a yogi. If he causes grief to somebody, he or she, cannot be a yogi or yogini. According to the Gita. And I endorse it, I accept it. So, this is Vedanta. Now, Swami Vivekananda was once asked, can you give us a definition of what is the essence of the Gita? Can you tell us? Or essence of Vedanta? He said, I can put it in 3 simple sentences. Every soul is potentially divine. Potentially, may not be active. Every soul is potentially divine. To manifest this divinity, either through work or through worship or through meditation, is the essence of being, with the essence of Vedanta. And he said the rest of the things are all incidental. Sometimes you hear Akashvani. So, the essence of Vedanta, which the Upanishads declared from the Mahavakyas, is Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma. 4 Mahavakyas. The entire Upanishads, all the teachings of Vedanta are built on this. And what does it mean? It's a message of hope for us, like the walk of hope, that every soul is potentially divine. Inside our heart sits the Antaryami, which is an essence, a spark of the divine. And a spiritual life is the way to open up your mind, to purify it, so that it blazes forth in its majesty, complete majesty. And it is in every single individual. Now, if somebody recognizes this in human beings, will you harm anybody? You may not know it, but it's still there. I think it is there in me. You may not know it, but I think it's there in you. You may not know it, I know it. So can I cause harm to... Imagine a society, what we call a modern world. There are many good things in the modern world. For instance, communication has grown. Today, you can sit with a small little thing and talk to somebody miles away. Fine, good. There is God, Google, G, all information is available. In fact, in one way I ask people, why are you carrying all this information? Go there and you can find it in 2 minutes. It's a good way to free your mind of too much muck. There is no guarantee that it's always right in Google. Okay, there are few mistakes. Anyway, so there are many good things in modern life. I'm saying, can we introduce the essence of Vedanta into our daily life? So that while the facilities of the modern world are available to us, the soul is Vedantic. Swami Vivekananda said, a time will come when human beings will realize that they are Amritasya Putraha, which comes from the Upanishad, sons of immortality. And having seen that the spark may be there, at least give it benefit of doubt. I'm saying it is there, but give it a benefit of doubt if you still don't believe. And say, can I fan that spark into a big flame, which in its compassion, love and affection will embrace the whole world. The teachings of the Upanishads are not for geographical locations, they are for the entire world. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu is from the Upanishad. And the interesting thing is that when that spark is touched, it doesn't mean that you retire into a cave and do nothing. In fact, you are filled with a compassionate compulsion to share this happiness with others. Not for any personal, to share it with others. And when many such people live in this world, and when we have leaders who are rooted in Vedanta, but are functioning in this world in day-to-day life, I think we will have a different world. Because especially in this country, the essence of our being is spiritual. You can go on expanding. You can have economic reforms, you can build bridges, you can do many things, you can have more trains running, you can do many things. But if that spark of spiritual essence is gone from our hearts, our civilization will collapse. We've seen it in the West. There are all modern facilities, everything is there. Soul. And today especially, in this context, when we are living in the modern world, when the West is beginning to understand the importance of Vedanta and trying to move towards it, we should move away from it. It's our heritage. It's the most precious heritage we have is Vedanta, the Upanishads, the Gita, the wonderful books. It does not belong to anybody in particular. It's a universal. So my appeal to all of you today is keep the essence of being in your hearts, in the core of your hearts. See it also in other hearts. And don't become lazy, but work towards the good of others. I need to add something more. Many people, I see also young men who come and say, there's no point in doing any work, I just want to meditate. I tell them, look, either you're lazy or you're having some substances, chemicals. It can't be otherwise. Because look at people who have touched the spiritual in some way. Here is an 86, 87-year-old man who is all the time doing something. So please do not, and in my case I don't want to say, everybody knows. I don't know my schedule after 10 minutes. So, does it disturb me? Does the mind lose its tranquility? No. Why? Because it is rooted in its essence, in its core. So, please do not mistake tamoguna for sattvaguna. According to Sankhya, which is used also in Vedanta, there are 3 attributes by which all life is permeated with. One is sattva, other is rajas, and the third is tamoguna. Very often, now sattva is calmness, quietness, tranquility, which comes through spiritual understanding. Tamoguna is laziness, inertia, not moving. Very often we misunderstand, we mistake tamoguna for sattva. When I am lazy, I don't want to do anything, I think I am very spiritual. Not true. Now, the way to, you'll excuse me, the way to sattva from tamoguna is rajas, activity, but right activity, constructive activity, activity not for the self but for others. Then slowly the tamoguna gets transferred to sattvaguna. And in sattvaguna, the mind is still, but you can do anything you want. There is no harm. Now the one person, I don't know if you've read it, there was this great yogi Paramahamsa, whose name was Sadashiv Brahmendra. Yesterday also I said it at the retreat, because I have some connections in the past. Sadashiv Brahmendra was a Vedantic. He was a Paramahamsa, which means he was not aware if he was wearing clothes or not. He wondered. And he's written various things, but one of the popular ones are, he has written lyrics for classical music, Carnatic music, South Indian music. In fact, he is the author of this beautiful song, Pibore Ramarasa. Now, among his works, one work which is so wonderful is called the Yoga Sudhakara. In Yoga Sudhakara, It is actually a commentary on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. But he was probably the first to attempt to bridge yoga and Vedanta together, because he was a Vedantic, he was also a yogi. And it is in this that you will find a proper exposition of how people misunderstand tamoguna to be sattoguna. Because very many people think that when you are inert, you are very spiritual. No. I'm not saying if you have to be spiritual, you have to be always acting. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that there is a way of living in this world and working in this world, not only for the self but also for others. In fact, the more one is spiritual, the more one works for others than for himself. And at the same time remain totally tranquil and rooted in the spark of the divine which is in every heart. If this is possible, the modern world will be completely transformed. Why I'm saying this? Don't think Vedanta is only for the sannyasin. Gita itself has very clearly said it is not for one who does not work or stops his actions, it is for one who works selflessly. Can you imagine in this hall there must be several hundred people. If everybody thinks, I will work without the self, what will happen to this? Enough, you can change the world. I don't know if you will, but you can. So, this is the connection between Vedanta and modern life. So, I wouldn't bore you with anything more. Thank you very much. Om Shanti. Thank you very much.